Hello, hello, Sarah of SEK Handmade here, and you guys, I have an awesome technique for you today. I'm going to share with you how to crochet a Mobius strip. It is so cool and so fun, and today I have a fail-proof way to get going. I know you're gonna love this, so let's go. My friends, if you know me, you know that I love a good technique that looks super complicated but is really easy. I must confess, when I started trying to figure out both how this worked and how I was going to teach it to you, it confounded my brain a tiny bit because I couldn't picture it. But once I got it figured out, I was thrilled, and I am so excited to teach it to you today because it is a truly simple technique, and I have a fail-proof way for you to make a Mobius strip in crochet. For this tutorial, you're going to need some yarn. This is a great place, especially if you're just practicing, to go ahead and use just some leftover yarn. This is leftover yarn from a project of mine. I would recommend using a lighter color yarn. It's always easier to see your stitches, and a heavier weight yarn. This is a nice heavy bulky weight yarn, so it's going to be easier to see where my stitches are and just make sure I'm doing everything right straight from the go. Then you're going to need a hook that matches the weight of your yarn that you've chosen. So this will change depending on what size yarn you choose. You just want it to go with your yarn so that your stitches are not too loose or not too tight. If they're too loose, you're going to have trouble seeing where you're going. And if they're too tight, you're going to have a hard time getting your hook through there. And you're going to add frustration to the process that's totally unnecessary. Then I have 5 stitch markers. You can see I have 2 stitch markers in one color, 2 stitch markers in another color, and 1 stitch marker that is totally different. These 4 stitch markers here are key to our process here. This 5th stitch marker is optional. That's just going to hold your live stitch while we get all set up to get working in the right direction. So if you're the kind of person who can just pull out a loop and doesn't worry about your live stitch, you maybe don't need this one, but you definitely need these 4. To get started, you're going to work a chain of any length. I recommend probably somewhere between 12 and 14 inches. We are going to turn this into working in the round. So it needs to be long enough that you can comfortably work in the round with that chain. Like I said, any number of stitches. If you're working a specific pattern, then you can go ahead and work the stitch pattern indicated in the pattern, even if it's just a practice. But if you're just practicing because you saw this tutorial and thought that was cool, or just wanted to give it a try, what I'm going to do is I'm going to work my chain, and then I'm going to work single crochets back into the chain. Now, I want to tell you a very important step to make this so much easier and look really, really nice. And that is that we're going to use the technique of working into the back bump of our chain when we work our stitches back into our chain. Now, if you don't know how to work into the back bump, I'm going to go ahead and link that so you can go give that a look and then come back here and try this out, because that's an important step. All right, I have worked my chain. I have worked a row of single crochets back into my chain. I am going ahead and using my contrasting stitch marker here to hold my final loop so that my stitches don't come unraveled as we're working here. And here's what I want to show you real quick. This is the bottom, this is my chain, and this is what working into the back bump gives you. It gives you these V's that look just like stitches to work back into, and we're going to use those to create our Mobius strip. So that's important. Maybe not a total deal breaker, but highly, highly recommend to make this whole thing easier. Now I'm going to start by taking 1 stitch marker of each color and going to the end of my stitches that I just worked. I'm going to take my green stitch marker, you can choose whatever color, and I'm going to insert it into the top of my final stitch that I made. So it's just hanging out in that final stitch. This is my working loop. Then I'm going to turn over and I'm going to find my chain here, and I'm going to insert my other color of stitch marker into the chain. So in my chain, I have a purple stitch marker. In my stitch, I have a green stitch marker. Now we're going to make sure we're holding our row of stitches nice and flat, and we're going to go to the other end of our stitches here. And we're going to take our green stitch marker and we're going to put it on the top of our very first stitch. So green is going on top at both ends, and then purple is going to go on the bottom. So again, through that chain that matches my stitch now has a stitch marker in it as well. Then go ahead and lay your row of stitches nice and flat, and then flip them so that the wrong side of your stitches is facing you. Then you can go ahead and take your stitch marker off of your live stitch and insert your hook. Now, then keeping this nice and flat, normally what you would do is you would join your top stitch to your top stitch. But this time, making sure it's flat, we're going to bring our ends together and we're going to give it one flip so that our purple stitch is on top, and purple stitch marker, I should say, and our green stitch marker is on the bottom. So that's what gives us the little twist that we need to make this a Mobius loop. Then we're just going to insert our hook. Let me see, I think I have my working yarn here in the wrong place. Make sure your working yarn is to the back so you're not all tangled up. Then I'm going to insert my hook into where my purple stitch marker is, and I'm going to join with a slip stitch. Then I'm going to chain one, and I'm going to work a single crochet into that same stitch. Now, this is the bottom of our chain. So these are the back bumps, or this is our chain, sorry. This is our chain that we're working into. You guys, if you can get through this join and the first couple rounds of this, then you just fly. So stick with me here. You know, working into a chain can be a bit of a pain, but we're going to go ahead and insert into our chain, making sure that we're grabbing both of the V's, and we're going to work single crochets all the way around until we get back to our stitch markers. So go ahead and do that, and then we'll meet back here. So when you're a couple stitches away from your stitch markers, we'll start up again. All right, so you can see I have 3 more chains to work into. I'm almost back around to my purple stitch marker. Remember, we started with a purple stitch marker. Those were our ones that were on the bottom of our work. And so I'm gonna just keep working until I work in the final chain, which has my purple stitch marker in it. Then I'm gonna get my tail out of the way here, and I'm going to go ahead and work into my next stitch with the green stitch marker. So we've now got green stitch marker with purple stitch marker and purple stitch marker with green stitch marker. And I'm not going to join and I'm not going to chain. I'm just going to keep working my single crochets. And now you can see or feel, if you're working with me here, that it's so much easier to work into the tops of the stitches instead of working into that bottom chain. And now you're just going to fly, because every stitch is now going to be the top of a stitch, and you're just going to keep working around and around and growing this up and up. Because of cool sciencey things, Mobius strips are continuous, so you're going to be working continuously, and that will cause you to work the bottom and the top of the fabric all at the same time and give you this really fun twist. So you can see it really well with my example here. This right here, or right over here, this is my starting chain, and then I worked out from the bottom, which I had 3 colors of coordinating yarn. And so you can see I started with my lightest color, I added a slightly darker color, and then added my darkest color. And because you're working the top and then the bottom and then the top and then the bottom, you can see it evenly added those 3 colors all the way around the fabric. So much fun. What did I tell you? Pretty cool, huh? I know you're going to love working with this technique. I'll be sure to link below any patterns that I have that use this technique. I have a couple, and I just know that you're going to love working them, because once you get started, you just go, 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 go. It is so relaxing. If you found this tutorial helpful, I would love it if you would like this video, maybe even share it with a friend, and subscribe to my channel. Thank you so much for joining me today, and happy crafting!